Well, welcome to Ravensdale Bible Academy. Today's course is Think Again Christian, fact checking, and today's lesson is on the slide. But I thought that fences are racist. And so obviously this is a sarcastic remark. Obviously this is a play on words. And so what are we looking at? Well, what we're looking at here is on January 3rd, there was a riot on the Capitol, and there were Trump supporters, and there were people that stormed the Capitol, and we had a problem. And so, in order to resolve the problem, right, in order to prevent whether it's Trump supporters or potentially Antifa agitators, we responded. How did we respond to protect the Capitol? Well, we built a fence. We brought in soldiers. Okay? And so the question is, well, if we've been told, and we're shifting the argument now, we've been told that on our borders, say on our borders between Mexico and America, that fences are inherently racist, that fences are wrong. And so the question is, well, is this hypocrisy? Are politicians saying one thing, fences aren't right, fences are racist, or are they just unrelated? And the two don't really match because this is an attack on the Capitol and politicians and our government, and the other one is just an attack on, well, our people and our government. So we'll get to that. And so the question is, well, are fences, walls, are they inherently wicked and evil? I mean, or you know, and when you listen to the news, you would get the idea that we're the only ones in the world that have walls. In fact, there's 77 walls or fences around the world. Maybe you've heard of the Great Wall of China, right? There's fences, and you know, the Great Wall of China was built why? To keep their enemies out from Mongolia. Fences are traditionally built for protection. Fences that are built to keep people in, right? Like the Berlin Wall. Those are different kinds of fences. We call, when you're trying to keep people in, that's called prison, right? So two different kinds of walls. But why are fences built? The fences are built first and foremost for protection, for unwanted threats. Unwanted threats. And fences are built to control danger. They also are built to define territory, ownership, right? And so part of the 77 fences around the world are that nations are defining their territory. They're protecting their land, their rights. We see that in Europe, there's fences that are being built all the time. Why? To try to stop the flow of North African immigrants that are just taking over in Europe, primarily from Muslim countries. And so when you build a wall, it's not necessarily by definition a ban against Islam or Muslims, right? That wall is being put there for many different reasons, many reasons. One of the interesting things is that walls work. So that means walls are good. You build a wall around the Capitol, and guess what? People can't storm the Capitol. It's a barrier, it's a protection. That's a good thing. When they have the wall in San Diego, 90% of their illegal crossings were stopped. Same thing happened in Jerusalem with the Palestinians and the wall that they built. And so walls and fences are built and erected for protection, protective measures. And they've been proven, factually proven, to be a good thing. Well, what about the Bible? I mean, what does the scripture say? What does God say? I mean, certainly God who is loving and kind and loves, whether you're Jew or Gentile or, you know, Jew or Greek, that God of all would never be in favor of border walls. The other thing we have to get out of our minds is the idea that border walls have anything to do with race at all. They really don't. They're just lines of demarcation from one country to another. So we want to look at what the scripture says. And in Genesis 15:18, we see that God gives the definition of Israel by borders, by actually providing the territory that's broken down so that there's no confusion, so that we can even look back and say, a couple thousand years earlier, well, that's the land. And so in Genesis 15:18, God made a covenant with Abraham, saying, to your descendants I have given this land, from the river of Egypt as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, the Canaanite and the Kenizzite and the Kedomite and the Hittite and the Perizzite and Rephaim and the Amorite and the Canaanite and the Girgashite and the Jebusite. And so by that definition, we would know exactly where the territory was. It's a God-given thing. We see God instructs Nehemiah to erect a wall, to build a wall. Why? Well, Israel had been conquered. Israel had been conquered by its enemies, and so a wall would serve as future protection against Israel's enemies. We also see in Proverbs 22 and Deuteronomy 19:14 commands not to move another man's marker or boundary. So even individually we have rights. We have rights to our land. Today we call them surveyors, right? And so there's marking points. And so you could go out and say, these are the four corners of my property line, and that is then my land. We see that supported by the Bible. So border walls are clearly acceptable. Creating territory is okay. It's not inherently any kind of a racist statement at all. It defines your land and it protects your land. That's the point. That's the whole point of border walls. Now, we've seen that President Trump, we see that Republicans, we see that conservatives are routinely called racist for building fences. But is that really the issue? Is that really the issue? Well, back to our primary issue. Fences aren't based on races at all. They protect from unwanted threats like, well, too many people coming over the border, that creates a tax burden. Too many people coming, let's say, like filling your hospitals, filling your schools, creating a welfare situation, that's a problem. There's only so much money to go around. And when you tax citizens to support this, well, that becomes a problem. There's a lot of resentment for that. The second piece that we see is for walls is you control danger. You control danger. That's why they were built the Capitol, to try to control the danger, right? Try to control any physical harm from taking place. And so border laws are typically put there because, well, we've had a lot of problems. We can go into our prison systems right now and see convicted felons and see that, look, 1% come from Colombia, another 1% from Cuba, another 1% from Dominican Republic, 9.4% from Mexico. Now, and a lot of these people come up from Mexico, but listen, that's 10 to 13% of our prisons. So listen to this. We could eliminate 13% of criminal activity in America by just not letting illegals come over the country. How's that for a solution? That's a pretty effective protective measure. A lot of gangs, a lot of drugs, a lot of crime, not all of them. And again, let me be crystal clear here. I'm Mexican American. I'm second generation. That means my grandparents came across the border from Mexico. So I have a vested interest in this topic. I'm all for Mexicans wanting to come to America and wanting to not survive but thrive in this great land. But there's a proper way to go about doing it. And we need to protect our citizens here from all the bad and the underside of immigration. That's why we check, right? That's why we check people out the door. You know, it's pretty common sense. The other thing is defining territory. Uh, border border walls, border fences, they define where your territory is. And so the idea again is we have a legal and an illegal process of moving to America. And so that gives us the ability to control, to be safe, to be fair. There's people that have been waiting in line for years to come into America. We want to make sure that maybe there's COVID, there's diseases and sicknesses that we've got to make sure that don't come in. I was a part of a ministry, uh, and what we would do is we would build homes, and these homes were called bunk homes, and it's called HOM, Hands of Mercy. It's a beautiful ministry. Americans from American churches. I grew up in LA. It's only a couple hours away from the border. We would build the frames of these bunk houses at church and then drive them down and then erect them down, working with a local church or a local pastor. One of the reasons why these homes, these bunk homes, were so important. Now, remember, these are like two-story, um, essentially tool sheds, no electricity, no running water. But what this did was this established home ownership for a Mexican citizen to then be able to go apply to come to America as a homeowner for Mexico. That was part of the process. And so there's a process, and there's people who are working hard to make sure that Mexican immigrants can come into America legally in the right way. And we don't want to stop that flow. We want that flow to keep coming in. America depends on Mexican Americans to come and work and serve and live and thrive in America. It's a great thing, but we have to do it the right way. The right way. I know it sounds mean. I know it sounds harsh. But look, we have some major problems in America, and the facts just don't lie. The facts don't lie. There's a massive drug smuggling issue. Uh, there's tunnels that, New York Post talked about. There's 51 tunnels that were discovered on these border cities between Mexico and Texas. And what's happening is there's illegal drugs being smuggled in. And again, if you have a child, or if you have a family member that has been just taken over by drugs, it's a horrible thing. And so we want to prevent that from happening. Fences are for protection, to protect our people. They're not inherently meant to just keep people away. They're meant to keep bad people out. It's the same thing why we have fences at our home and why we lock the doors, right? We want to keep bad people out. Well, again, there's a purpose. There's a purpose for fences. The purpose is safety. It's not racism. We have some false claims here and fact checking. If you even mention a border, if you even mention a fence or a wall, people immediately want to call you a racist. If you mention that there's illegal aliens that have been a part of crime syndicates, have been a part of drugs, have been a part of breaking the law, well, again, the facts don't lie. And Donald Trump didn't say it, conservatives didn't say it, Republicans didn't say it, and I'm not saying it. All people who come from the border are not criminals. In fact, we have a pretty good idea that 90% of them just want a better place to live. But we also know 10% need to be checked, need to be accounted for. There needs to be accountability. And so we look at the old lawyers, right? The old lawyers' rule was before you remove a fence, you have to ask yourself the question, why was it put there in the first place? So think again, Christian.